Reverend Langeni, let's talk about the experience of immigration for a second. Not that there is one experience,
Sure.
there are so many. But you worked with some refugee folks at the Salas Center, and you named that you yourself are an immigrant. Can you share a bit about the unique needs of immigrant youth and what adults should be mindful of in the efforts of space making for this subset of our youth population?
Yeah, this is definitely like a gigantic question with so many layers that would have to kind of be split and unpacked, especially considering, there's like not a way that immigrant folks show up in the world. So some are from like Muslim countries or some are from Asia or Africa, right? So it's different particularities, right, with the different ways in which people kind of show up here, and then even the circumstances that brought them here. Are they running from something, are they here willingly, right? um so I'd probably say, maybe like, if we're to answer like for the those who maybe have power and privilege, uh one thing that would have helped me a lot too, especially with Salah Center, is if we had more folk, cisgender, heterosexual, white folk in particular, Christian in particular, men folk in particular, to actually help do the work of like not just educating, but to kind of disrupt these unchecked patterns of like normativity, so that if you're not like the rest, there are all these barriers that you've kind of got to overcome. And so if there's a way to kind of help shift, again, like a wider culture answer, apparently is my theme here, um you know to like bring folk along in the learning, so that way when a queer person does show up, or a Black person, or a Muslim, or whatever, right, minoritized identity person shows up for this direct care, they're not having to do the heavy lifting by themselves. So what are the ways in which our organizations, maybe the ones that we start with, the one that we're in currently, right? Even if it's like an oasis in a community where, you know, people know that they can come here and be who they are fully. And then, as you're still kind of cultivating that culture shift in your own spaces, how can you help share that in other spaces, so that eventually we can be in communities in a world, right, that doesn't need to have pockets of acceptance, but that acceptance is the norm and not these particular identities being the norm. So I think if we widen that, then it's not about, oh, I don't know anything about, disabled Muslim kids. I only know about, bisexual, you know, Arabic kids or something, right? Where it's like, I don't have to know the particularities of your identities or the person who comes for care, but that we're committed to, this posture of like listening to what someone may need, and then figure out how do we, respond to those needs. Sometimes like the need is literally like, I hear you and I see you fully. And we can't be all things to all people, right? But we can indeed like rehumanize even these like, service oriented organizations, because like they too can be very dehumanizing unintentionally, because of like order and procedures, being broke my whole life, I'm saying, we've been to many food pantry and had to like rely on like community services, and just like it is so dehumanizing, so very dehumanizing, even these places that are supposed to be offering help. If we can work on humanizing those processes again, you know, that I think would make a tremendous difference, in whatever identities these folk have as they come to us. And in particular, right, young folk, who are various, like, these are their formative years, and what happens now is going to get carried forth, for many years to come, if they can even get to those years to come, right? That's the other reality in these communities. It's just like how death is so very close in ways that is not true for others with different identities.
And that's a helpful reminder for those of us who do not have those identities, to name that, you know, the expectation of future is very
Mm,
different. The assumption, the normative understanding of one's future outlook,
right,
is sometimes really different.
right.
Thanks.